2022, Egypt exports to Africa reached $5.2 billion. About 46% of these trade volumes was to Sudan and Sub-Saharan countries. Since 2013, Egypt has built 2 land crossings and expanded highways to Sudan to enable its products find an easier path to the other African countries through its southern neighbor.
Sudan is one of the most important African countries as far as trade is concerned. Sudan is a natural expansion for Egypt's trade, and it is a gateway to several African countries. The most important gateway to our exports into Africa is without a doubt Sudan.
Transit trade has not grown as much recently, with the exception to the volume of our exports to South Sudan. For now, everything is at a standstill because of the fighting. Exporters are hoping the crisis would get resolved soon so that business would resume. But unfortunately, both land and maritime trade froze, and there is a very high risk involved now to secure the goods.
The ongoing conflict in Sudan has choked Egypt's ambitious exports expansion in Africa. Last year, the country said it targeted to reach $15 billion by 2025. That's after the North African state earned its record $5.2 billion in 2022. But the escalating skirmishes between Sudan's military forces has forced Egyptian exporters to start looking for alternative ways to access African markets without going through Sudan.
We export directly to Kenya through the sea. In Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, we have a massive logistical area. Egyptian firms have huge warehouses to store and export Egyptian goods from there. We have no problem reaching an African country with a port. The real issue here is the freight cost, which is quite high.
To reach landlocked countries, we could expand exports to Djibouti port. This is a major access point to countries such as Ethiopia and other neighboring countries. Mombasa port in Kenya gives us access to Uganda, Rwanda and Burundi and other landlocked nations. The biggest challenge for Egyptian exporters is to replace the Sudanese market with other African markets.
Because freight charges to African countries are quite high, Egypt sees a huge potential for overland trade. Since 2020, Cairo and Khartoum have been leading talks to make Sudan a transit trade hub, especially to landlocked countries, which are 4 of Sudan's 7 neighbors. Sudan gives Egypt overland goods transportation access to 6 countries directly and about 13 others indirectly. That gives Egyptian products access to nearly 750 million people. While that is clearly a huge potential for Egyptian exports, the political crisis in Sudan could affect this flow. Adel Mahroui for CGTN, Cairo.